3 years ago today, the most destructive wildfire in Colorado broke out. The Marshall Fire destroyed more than 1,000 homes and 30 commercial structures. According to Boulder County, more than 103,000 tons of ash debris was removed after the fire. Currently, 60% of affected households have completed their rebuilds and moved into their new homes, with an additional 20% in the process of still rebuilding. The conditions that started the Marshall Fire are the same conditions that we're going to see later today. Good morning, I'm Corey Rose.
And I'm Erica Lopez. We want to head straight over to meteorologist Carl Lamb this morning. Carl, people are really going to have to be careful when they're headed outside today.
Yeah, the setup is very similar, but there are a couple differences. I would say most importantly, the National Weather Service has put out that red flag warning. Last time, that was not issued. So there are preparations in place this time to give people the heads up. But high winds, and it will be really for the foothills into the Denver metro area and out east. The fire danger is also for the similar areas that I just mentioned. And it's tough travel in the mountains today. There's still more mountain snow, and the winds, especially at higher elevations, really gusty. So I would say near whiteout conditions in some spots. Now, again, the red flag warning beginning at 7 o'clock today. This is for areas from Denver to Colorado Springs and out towards Kit Carson County as well and further south. So definitely keeping an eye on this because it has been so dry and the relative humidity is so low that any spark could start a fire, and that would move very quickly because of the high winds. This just accelerates any of the path that the fire could take. Those wind gusts are between 60 to 70 miles per hour and at various ending times for this, but just know it's really windy throughout the entire day. It's already windy out there. Those gusts are just going to get stronger. There are avalanche warnings in place until 5 o'clock today. It's considered a level 4 out of 5, so a high avalanche danger, and avoid travel on steep slopes. And it's just because that wind is going to jar loose the snow and send it down the mountain. So that's a big concern if you're up towards Eagle, Aspen, and over towards Winter Park, Nederland, Estes Park, and Steamboat Springs. A lot to cover. I'll have more on that 7-day forecast, which does feature colder temperatures for New Year's Eve.
All right, Carl, thank you. Now, these conditions are bound to bring back memories since 3 years ago today, the Marshall Fire sparked. It's also why Colorado's counties aren't taking any chances. And news reporter Janelle Finch joins us with how county officials are preparing to help keep people safe. Janelle, good morning.
Good morning. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office says it will take a little to do a lot with today's winds. But the fire management lead says that's why he's putting resources in place to keep people safe. Jeffco says December has been extremely dry. There hasn't been a lot of snow, causing dried up grass and vegetation. The Sheriff's Office says if a fire starts in these conditions, it could take off quickly. The fire management officer says there's increased concern on red flag warning days because the county is mixed with homes and grasslands, meaning more is at risk.
And so the wind with those fuel conditions has the potential for large fire growth, especially in the lower elevations, similar to what we saw with the Marshall Fire up in Boulder County in 2021, that catastrophic fire event.
Now, the winds today aren't expected to be as strong as they were 3 years ago, but the county is working with fire departments to make sure that they are at higher staffing levels to accommodate a need if they need to respond to a fire. Live in Denver, Janelle Finch, 9 News.
All right, Janelle, thank you so much.
You can keep up with the latest on the high fire danger and changing conditions on the 9 News app, and we're going to bring you updates all throughout the day right here on 9 News and also streaming on 9 News Plus. Erica, driving in today, winds already picking up.
And that's going to be a factor. People have to be very careful. We've got a lot going on from the mountains to the metro, of course, windy conditions across really the metro area. And then we've got snowy conditions up in the high country. I-70 in the east, Central Vale Chain Station. Quiet as far as volume is concerned, but we're definitely seeing a thick layer of snow out there on the interstate. I want to take you over to our map. Several problems I need to get to this morning. There's a crash on eastbound I-70, a little bit past Empire, closing a right lane. Loveland Pass also closed. We usually deal with that safety closure of Loveland Pass when we're dealing with snow. It's between I-70 and Montezuma Road. Additionally, we've got a closure of I-70 in both directions between Copper Mountain and East Vale. That stretch is not passable. A little bit colorful in general for the I-70 mountain corridor. Please be careful if you need to travel up that way. Relatively quiet though in the metro at 5:05. I-70 here between E470 and 76 is clear. Only a 14-minute travel time, but we can't stress enough. Take it slow and be careful with those high winds we're going to be dealing with today.
Great advice, Erica. Thank you. Today, the man accused of kidnapping and sexually assaulting an 11-year-old on her way to school is set to be arraigned in court. Police say Shukarani Melinda approached the girl at Macon and Colfax on her way to school. Police say he grabbed her arm, took her to his apartment nearby where he sexually assaulted her. That's where she was able to escape and call 911. Police say he is a registered sex offender. He's facing charges for kidnapping and sex assault.
Right now, Denver police is investigating a shooting that left 3 people injured on Sunday morning. It happened on East Jewel Avenue near I-25 in South Denver. All 3 people went to the hospital, and it's unclear how they're doing this morning. Police haven't said if anyone has been arrested. And in Aurora, officers are investigating a deadly car crash on 225 in East Iliff. Police say 2 cars crashed, and one of them had 2 people inside. One died at the scene. The other was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. From the other vehicle, 3 people were treated at the scene. Police believe high speed was a factor. The crash closed all lanes of 225 for several hours on Sunday.
A suspect connected to a murder from July is now in custody of Aurora police. Detectives had a warrant out for this man, 32-year-old Bryant Beecher. He's accused of murder and attempted murder in a shooting at an apartment off of East 30th Avenue. Police say 2 people were shot, 1 of them died. Beecher is the 2nd suspect now in custody.
This morning, flags are at half-staff following the death of former President Jimmy Carter. President Biden announced a state funeral will be held on January 9th and proclaimed National Day for Mourning. Jimmy Carter died at his home in the small town of Plains, Georgia, where he and his late wife, Rosalind, lived the majority of their lives. Carter served as the 39th President of the United States. His crowning achievements includes championing energy reform and legislation and signing the Camp David Accords, which provided a framework for peace between Egypt and Israel. His economic policies and failure to rescue American hostages in Iran caused his popularity to dip. Once he left office, he focused on philanthropy and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. Carter died at 100 years old, making him the longest-lived president in history.
Leaders across the country are paying tribute to Carter. President Biden released a photo and a statement on X saying he and his wife had the honor of calling Jimmy Carter a dear friend. Biden also addressed the nation hours after the announcement, calling Carter an extraordinary leader, statesman, and humanitarian. President-elect Donald Trump also took to social media responding to the loss, asking Americans to keep the Carter family in their prayers and saying, quote, he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude.
In other news this morning, despite the U.S.'s debt expected to decrease on January 2nd, the Treasury Secretary says the nation could still reach its debt limit. In a letter to congressional leader Janet Yellen says on January 2nd, the U.S.'s outstanding debt will actually decline, which means the debt limit won't happen until mid to late January. She warns during that time, the Treasury will need to figure out ways to pay the federal government's bills on time and in full. The country's current debt ceiling is about $36 trillion.
This comes as a government agency just lost billions in funding. Congress stripped the IRS of another $20 billion following the deal to avoid a government shutdown. Originally, Democrats had given the IRS $80 billion as part of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. However, Congress withdrew $20 billion of that in 2023 budget deal. Now another $20 billion was taken in last week's spending bill. Because of these cuts, the Biden administration says the agency will do 400 fewer audits of major businesses each year and 1,200 fewer audits of high-income individuals.